By the time I noticed something was wrong, the ward had already gone quiet. It was my third month working the night shift as a nurse. I was still new enough to feel nervous, but experienced enough to trust routine. Night shifts were predictable. Fewer visitors, fewer emergencies, just vitals, charting, and long stretches of silence broken by monitors beeping softly in the dark. That night, I was assigned to the fourth-floor medical ward. Mostly elderly patients, post-op recoveries, a few long-term cases, nothing unusual. At 1:30 a.m. I began my routine rounds. Room 401 asleep, 402 stable, 403 snoring loud enough to hear through the door. Everything matched the chart. When I reached room 417, I slowed down. The door was open. That caught my attention immediately. We kept doors partially closed at night to reduce noise and light. An open door usually meant a patient needed something. Inside the room, the bed was occupied. A man lay on his back, awake, staring at the ceiling. His vitals monitor was on. Room 417 wasn't on my chart. I stopped just outside the doorway and checked my clipboard again. I flipped through the pages carefully, scanning the room numbers. 417 was missing. At first I assumed it was a mistake. Clerical errors happened more often than anyone liked to admit. Patients got transferred. Rooms changed. Charts updated late. I stepped into the room. The man looked to be in his late 40s. Pale but not critically so. He wore a standard hospital gown, no visible injuries, no wristband that I could see. "Good evening," I said softly, keeping my voice calm. "I'm just here to check on you." He didn't respond. His eyes remained fixed on the ceiling, not unfocused, just distant. I checked the monitor, heart rate normal, oxygen stable, blood pressure within range. Everything about him said patient, except the paperwork. I stepped back into the hallway and flagged down another nurse at the statio. "Hey," I said quietly, "do we have someone in 417? She frowned. 417? No, that room's been empty all night. I felt a small jolt of unease. "There's a patient in there." She shook her head. "No admission for 417. I'd remember." I went back to the room, telling myself someone must have forgotten to update the system. I checked the computer terminal outside the room. No record. I searched by room number, by recent admissions, by bed assignment. Nothing. I went back inside and checked his wrist. No band. That was a problem. Hospital protocol was strict about identification. No wristband meant no meds, no procedures, no charting. "Sir," I said gently, "do you know your name?" His lips parted slightly. For a moment I thought he was going to answer. Instead he swallowed and whispered something I couldn't hear. I leaned in closer. His eyes shifted for the first time, slowly turning toward me. "They already know," he said quietly. A chill ran through me. "Who knows?" I asked. He didn't answer. I straightened up and stepped back. I didn't like how calm he was. Not scared, not confused, just resigned. I left the room and called the charge nurse. She came down with me, irritation clear on her face. "This better not be another charting mix-up," she muttered. When we reached room 417, she stopped. The room was empty. The bed was neatly made. No IV, no monitor, no patient. It looked untouched. My heart started racing. "I swear," I said, my voice shaky, "there was someone here 5 minutes ago." She looked at me carefully. "Are you tired?" "Yes," I said, "but
No room assignment, no transfer logs. Get some water, she said. Take 5. I did, but my hands wouldn't stop shaking. At 2:40 a.m., the call light for room 417 went off. I froze. The charge nurse stared at the panel. "That's not possible," she said. We walked back together. The door was open again. The man was back in the bed. Same position, same stare, same calm expression. The charge nurse went pale. She checked the monitor. "Vitals are real," she whispered. She checked the IV line. "This is hooked properly." She turned to me. "Why isn't he in the system?" I didn't have an answer. She left to call administration. I stayed. The man finally "They keep forgetting me," he said. Who? I asked, barely breathing. The ones upstairs, he replied. I didn't ask what he meant. At 3:15 a.m., his vitals started dropping, slowly at first. Oxygen dipped. Heart rate became irregular. I prepared to call a code, but when I tried to enter his information, the system wouldn't allow it. No patient found. I ran into the hallway, shouting for help. By the time I came back with a doctor, the room was empty again. No bed this time, just a bare room. At shift change, room 417 was sealed. Maintenance claimed it had been unused for months. I was written up for confusion due to fatigue. 2 weeks later, I asked a senior nurse about it. She went quiet. Then she said, room 417 doesn't stay occupied. I asked her what she meant. She said patients end up there when they fall through the cracks. Paperwork delays, system errors, no insurance, no advocate. I asked what happened to them. She didn't answer. I transferred off night shift shortly after. But sometimes, when I pass that hallway, I notice something. The call light above room 417 flickers, even though the room is still listed as empty. The first thing they teach you in a hospital is simple. Always check the wristband. Name, date of birth, medical record number. You don't touch a patient, don't give medication, don't even adjust an IV unless the wristband matches the chart. That rule was drilled into me so hard that it became automatic. Which is why what happened that night still bothers me. I was working as a patient care technician at a regional hospital assigned to the surgical recovery wing. It was a quiet floor, mostly patients recovering from routine procedures. Appendectomies, gallbladders, nothing dramatic. My shift started at 7 p.m. By midnight, the floor was silent except for the hum of machines and the occasional cough echoing through the hallway. At around 12:40 a.m., I was asked to assist with routine vitals in room 312. The chart said the patient was a middle-aged woman recovering from minor surgery. Stable, no complications. When I walked in, the lights were dim, but I could see someone sitting up in the bed. It wasn't a woman. It was a man. He was thin, maybe late 30s or his hair was dark and slightly damp like he'd been sweating. He looked tired but alert. I paused at the doorway, confused. Sorry, I said quietly. I think I've got the wrong room. He shook his head slowly. This is my room, he said. I checked the room number again. I stepped inside, feeling uneasy. Mistakes happened, but this felt off. Can I check your wristband? I asked. He extended his arm. The wristband was there. Name, date of birth, medical record number. I compared it to the chart on my tablet. It didn't match, not even close. Different name, different DOB, different record number. I frowned. This doesn't match what I have. He didn't look surprised. Wristband mix-ups happened, though rarely. I'll get this fixed, I told him. Just need to verify. I stepped out and went to the nurse's station. The nurse on duty pulled up the chart. Room 312 was still listed as a female patient, asleep, recovering normally. No male patients assigned there, she said. I told her there was definitely a man in the bed. She sighed, clearly annoyed. Then someone moved rooms without telling us. Happens all the time. She told me to recheck and bring the wristband information back. When I returned to the room, the man was lying down now, staring at the wall. I checked the wristband again. It had changed. The name was different from before. I checked twice. It still didn't match the chart, but it also didn't match what I had seen minutes earlier. Did they change your wristband? I asked. He shook his head. They keep putting new ones on, he said calmly. They don't read them. My stomach tightened. I scanned the band with the handheld scanner. Error. Patient not found. I tried again. Same result. I left the room and told the nurse. She looked irritated but followed me back. As soon as she stepped inside, she stopped. The bed was empty, sheets pulled tight. No sign anyone had been there. The nurse turned to me. Where is he? I don't know, I said. He was right here. She checked the bathroom. Empty. Closet, empty. This isn't funny, she said. I wasn't laughing. She checked the chart again and muttered something about stress and staffing shortages. I was sent to help another room. At 2:10 a.m., room 312's call light went off. The nurse rolled her eyes and sent me. When I entered, the man was back. Same gown, same tired expression. Different wristband again. This time, the name belonged to a patient who had died earlier that week. I recognized it because I had helped transport the body to the morgue. My hands started shaking. "That name," I said carefully, "that patient passed away." He looked at me slowly. "So did I," he said. I stepped back. "That's not funny," I whispered. "I'm not joking," he replied. "They just didn't finish the paperwork." I left the room immediately. I told the nurse exactly what I saw. Her face went pale when that medical record number had been closed. Time of death logged. Room 312 was flagged as occupied by someone else entirely. We went back together. The room was empty again. At around 3:30 a.m., the floor doctor was notified. Security checked the hallway cameras. Footage showed no one entering or leaving room 312 between midnight and 4 a.m. No staff, no patient. At 4:15 a.m., I was asked to finish my shift early. Before I left, I walked past room 312 one last time. The door was closed. A fresh wristband lay on the floor outside. I bent down and picked it up. Blank, no name. No number, just white plastic. I reported it. Administration said it was equipment waste. A month later, I overheard two senior nurses talking. One of them said, "That room does that sometimes." I asked what she meant. She looked at me and said, "Patients who don't get properly admitted, no insurance, no family, no follow-up. What happens to them?" I asked. She shrugged. "They disappear from the system before anyone notices." I quit shortly after. To this day, whenever I see hospitals don't really sleep. Even at night, there's always movement somewhere. A cart rolling down a hallway, a monitor beeping softly, a call light flickering on and off. But around 2 a.m., something changes. The building feels hollow. That's when this happened. I was working as a unit clerk at a large city hospital. My job wasn't hands-on patient care. I handled admissions, discharges, charts, and calls, mostly paperwork. Night shift was supposed to be quiet. That night it was. At 1:50 a.m., I was alone at the desk on the 6th floor medical unit. Most of the nurses were doing rounds. The lights were dimmed. The hallway looked empty in both directions. I was catching up on discharge summaries when I heard footsteps. Slow, careful, I looked up expecting a nurse. Instead, I saw a man standing a few feet away from the desk. He looked exhausted. Hospital gown, bare feet. IV tape still stuck to his arm, but no IV line attached. His hair was messy, like he'd been running his hands through it all night. "Hi," I said, startled. "Can I help you?" He nodded. "They said I was discharged." That was unusual at that hour. "Okay," I said slowly. "Do you have your paperwork?" He shook his head. "They told me to come here." I pulled up the patient management system. "What's your name?" I asked. He told me. I typed it in. No results. I tried again, checking spelling. Still nothing. It was marked out of service for maintenance. "I'm not seeing you here," I said carefully. "Are you sure about the room number?" "Yes," he said. "I've been there for 2 days." I checked admissions. Nothing, no pending discharge. No active patient, no recent transfer. "Do you have a wristband?" I asked. He lifted his arm. It was gone, just a faint red mark where it had been. "They took it off," he said. "Said I didn't need it anymore." That didn't make sense. I called the charge nurse and asked her to come to the desk. When she arrived, she looked at the man, then at me. "I don't recognize him," she said quietly. She asked him the same questions, same answers. She pulled up the system herself. Nothing, she frowned. "Sir, are you sure you're on the right floor?" He nodded. "This is where they brought me." She asked him what he'd been admitted for. Breathing.
But that patient had been transferred to ICU, and he hadn't survived. The nurse checked the ICU log, same name, same date of birth, time of death, 2:17 a.m. I felt my chest tighten. The nurse looked at the man again. "You were discharged?" she asked carefully. "Yes," he said, "at 2:17. Neither of us spoke for a few seconds. The hallway lights flickered softly. "Sir," the nurse said, forcing calm into her voice, "can you wait here for a moment?" He nodded and sat down in one of the chairs by the wall. The nurse leaned toward me and whispered, "Call security, now." Security arrived within minutes. They asked the man to stand. He did. They asked for ID. He had none. They asked where he planned to go. "Home," he said. According to footage, no one had escorted him to the desk. He hadn't exited any room. He simply appeared at the end of the hallway and walked toward us. Security told him he couldn't leave until things were sorted. He didn't argue, he just sat back down. At 2:25 a.m. I refreshed the system. A new entry appeared. Patient. Discharge time 2:17 a.m. Disposition. Deceased. The nurse saw it too. She swallowed hard. "Sir," she said quietly, "do you feel okay?" He looked up at her. "I feel lighter," he said, "but I think they forgot something." "What?" she asked. "My chart," he replied. At that moment the overhead speaker crackled. Code blue. "I see you." The nurse flinched. She told security to stay with him and rushed off. I was left alone with the man. The air felt heavy. He looked at me with tired eyes. "I know," he said, "but they told me I could go." I checked the system again. His name disappeared. The discharge entry vanished, like it had never existed. I looked up. The chair was empty. Security stood frozen. "He was just here," one of them said. "We searched the floor, bathrooms, stairwells, supply rooms. Nothing." At 3:00 a.m., maintenance came to fix an issue in room 603. They called the desk. The guy said over the phone, "There's a bed in here." I frowned. "There shouldn't be." "There is," he said, "and it looks like someone was using it." The nurse went with them. The bed was warm, the sheets were wrinkled. On the bedside table sat a folded discharge paper. No name, no signature, just a time written at the bottom. 2:17 a.m. Administration reviewed the incident the next day. They said it was a system sync error. Security footage was labeled inconclusive. Room 603 was closed indefinitely. I quit a month later. Sometimes when I'm awake late at night, I think about that man, not as a ghost, not as something supernatural, but as someone who died quietly. Hospitals are strict about visitors at night. After 9 p.m., everyone needs a pass. No exceptions. Security checks every hallway, every floor. If you don't belong there, you're escorted out. That's why the man I kept seeing shouldn't have been there. I worked overnight security at a private hospital, midnight to 8 a.m. My job was simple: patrol the floors, check locked entrances, verify visitor badges, and respond to nurse calls. Most nights were boring. Quiet halls, dim lights, the same routine every hour. This one was. It started around 12:45 a.m. on the third floor. That floor was mostly recovery rooms and a small ICU wing. The nurse's station was quiet, monitors humming softly. That's when I noticed a man standing near the desk, just off to the side. He wasn't causing trouble. He wasn't pacing or arguing. He was just standing there, hands at his sides, staring toward the hallway. He didn't have a visitor badge. That alone was a problem. I approached him calmly. "Sir," I said, "visiting hours are over. Do you have a pass?" He looked at me like he hadn't noticed me before. "I'm waiting," he said. "For who?" I asked. "My wife." I nodded. "Okay, what room is she in?" 335. That room number rang a bell immediately. Room 335 had been cleared earlier that night. The patient had passed away at 11:58 p.m. I remembered because I'd helped escort the family out. I kept my face neutral. "Let me check," I said. I walked back to the nurse's station and asked the charge nurse quietly. She frowned as soon as I mentioned the room number. "No visitors." The man was gone. At first, I assumed he'd stepped into a nearby room or gone to the bathroom. People wander sometimes, especially when they're stressed. I finished my round. About 10 minutes later, I saw him again, this time near the elevators. Still no badge. I approached again, firmer this time. "Sir, I need you to leave the floor." He looked tired, not angry, not defensive, just worn down like he hadn't slept in days. "They said I could stay," he replied. "Who?" I asked. "The doctor," he said. After what?" "After she stopped breathing." My stomach dropped. I radioed my supervisor and asked her to come to the third floor. While waiting, I asked the man for ID. He patted his pockets slowly. "I don't have it," he said. "They took it when I came in." That sometimes happens in the ER, but not for visitors on inpatient floors. Security protocol said to escort him out immediately. But something about him made me hesitate. He wasn't trying to sneak anywhere. He wasn't drunk or confused. He wasn't lost. He was waiting. My supervisor arrived a few minutes later. She asked him the same questions. Same calm answers. When she asked his wife's name, he said it clearly. It matched the patient who had died in room 335. She checked the visitor log at the nurse's station. His name was there. Signed in at 6:12 p.m. Never signed out. That happens sometimes, she said quietly. Family forgets. She asked him to follow us to the exit. He nodded and walked calmly. As we passed room 335, he slowed down. That's where she was, he said. The room was dark, empty. No bed, no equipment, just cleaned walls and the faint smell of disinfectant. He stopped walking. I just need one more minute, he said. My supervisor shook her head. I'm sorry, sir. He looked at her. They said I could stay with her until they moved her. Before she could respond, my radio crackled. ICU nurse requesting security immediately. Code white. My supervisor told me to escort the man out alone while she responded. We took the elevator down. The doors closed. The ride was quiet. The man stood beside me, hands folded neatly in front of him. You work nights a lot? He asked. Yes, I said. They don't explain things very well at night, he said quietly. The elevator didn't. Only the hum of the lights and the sound of the automatic doors cycling occasionally. The man stepped out, then stopped. I think I left something upstairs, he said. I turned to him. Sir, you need to leave. He nodded slowly. I know, he said. I just don't know where to go. I escorted him toward the exit. He stood just inside the doors. You don't need a badge anymore, I said, trying to keep my voice professional. He looked down at his hands. They took hers, he said. I thought they'd take mine too. I opened the door. Cold air rushed in. When I turned back, he was gone. No footsteps. No sound of the doors closing. Nothing. I checked outside. No one. I reviewed the cameras later that night. The footage showed me walking to the exit, talking to no one, standing alone. The visitor log still showed his name. Signed in. Never signed out. Administration said it was stress, overtime confusion, grief projection. But a week later, another guard reported the same man. Same floor, same room, still waiting. Night shifts at the hospital were always quiet. Too quiet sometimes. Most of the time, I spent my hours checking patient charts, patrolling hallways, and responding to nurse calls. But that night was different. I was working as a patient care technician in the older wing of the hospital. The corridors smelled faintly of antiseptic and cleaning solution. The lights were dimmed for night mode, and only a few rooms had patients awake. Everything was normal until I heard it, a soft, muffled tapping sound. At first I thought it was a cart rolling down the hallway, but it continued, irregular, coming from the end of the wing. Room 419. That room was empty. It had been cleared earlier in the day. No patients, no equipment, nothing. Curious, I approached. The door was locked. That was odd. All empty rooms were supposed to be open for staff inspection. I knocked lightly. No answer. Then I heard it again, the tapping. Louder this time, from inside. I radioed the nurse's station. Room 419, I whispered. Something's weird. The nurse sighed. It's empty, don't waste your time, but I couldn't ignore it. There was something about that sound, too deliberate, too controlled to be just the building settling. I grabbed a key from my belt. The room was empty. Sheets neatly folded, no bedpan or monitor. Everything looked exactly like it should, except the window was cracked open a few inches. I closed it, thinking maybe the wind had caused the noise. I walked out. But the tapping continued. Now it wasn't coming from the window. It was coming from inside the wall panel near the foot of the bed. I pressed my ear to it. A faint whispering, almost like someone calling for help. My stomach twisted. I backed away and radioed the nurse again. Check 419, I said. There's, I don't know, something. She laughed nervously. It's empty, remember. I insisted. Finally, she grabbed a flashlight and came with me. We entered together. The tapping had stopped. The whispering too. Silence. Just the hum of the fluorescent lights. I shined the flashlight along the wall panels. Nothing. Then we noticed the panel by the bed. The one that had been flush against the wall was slightly ajar. Strange. Maintenance should have fixed that last week. I pushed it back. It resisted like something had been holding it from inside. I pushed harder, it clicked and shut. Both of us exhaled. I turned to leave, but then I noticed something chilling. A call light was blinking. The cord was coiled on the floor. No one was in the bed. No one had been admitted. No chart, no bracelet. The nurse froze. That shouldn't happen. The light stopped blinking as soon as I stepped closer. I touched the cord, it was warm. My pulse jumped. Then the softest whisper came from the corner of the room. "Help!" I spun around. No one, my heart raced. I called security. The dispatcher laughed lightly at first. "Empty room, huh?" But he said he'd send someone anyway. By the time they arrived, the room was silent again. No warmth, no cord movement, nothing. We double-checked the system. Room 419 remained unassigned, still empty. I went back to my rounds, but the image of that cord, the whisper, haunted me. Around 4 a.m., the patient monitor for the next occupied room beeped. Routine check. But the lights flickered, and for a split second I could have sworn I saw a shadow at the far end of 419. Just a shadow, gone when I blinked. The next day, maintenance inspected the room. No panel issues. Nothing to explain the warmth of the cord, the blinking light, or the whisper. Administration chalked it up to exhaustion or stress. But I knew what I had heard. Weeks later, another technician reported hearing faint tapping from the same room at night. The door remained locked. No patients. No chart. I requested a transfer to a different wing. I never worked near room 419 again. But whenever I hear the faintest tap,